So, on January 23, 2026, EASA dropped a really important airworthiness directive, number 2026-0017. This is a critical safety update for the entire Airbus A320 family, and in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly what it all means for operators.
Now, getting a handle on this directive is absolutely key. We're not just talking about ticking a regulatory box here. This is all about making sure the fleet remains airworthy and, most importantly, safe. So let's dive into the details. All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the root cause. Why this AD was even issued. Then, we'll pinpoint who's affected, figure out what exactly needs to be done, and talk about the permanent fix. We'll also touch on the operational side of things before we wrap it all up with a clear summary. Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, the overview and the root cause. What's the fundamental problem that EASA is trying to solve with this?
So, what kicked all this off? A bunch of really troubling reports started coming in. Damage was being found on certain forward-facing galleys. And we're talking about some serious stuff like delamination, corrosion, and even cracked retainer blocks.
And this is the chain reaction you really don't want to see happen. All that structural damage could mean the galley can't hold a trolley in place during an emergency landing. And the worst-case scenario? That heavy trolley could become a loose cannon, flying through the cabin and blocking a critical emergency exit.
So, you're probably asking, is this a brand new problem? Where did this come from?
Yeah, not at all. This has actually been on the radar for a while. The first directive about this came out way back in 2021. Since then, it's been updated several times. With each new version, EASA has been refining the list of affected galley parts as they get more data, which brings us right up to this latest update for 2026.
All right, this brings us to a really crucial part. Section 2, applicability. This is where you really need to tune in to see how your own fleet might be affected.
And let me tell you, the scope here is huge. This AD applies to the entire Airbus A320 family. We're talking everything from the A318 baby bus all the way up to the A321. And yes, that includes all the Neo variants. Crucially, it affects all manufacturers' serial numbers, so no one gets a pass based on their aircraft model.
So the AD breaks down the affected aircraft into a couple of groups. Group 1 is pretty straightforward. These are the planes that you can confirm have an affected part installed, one of those specific galley part numbers that are listed right in the AD.
Now, Group 2, this is where things get a little tricky, and you've got to be super careful with your records. These are aircraft with a galley that used to be an affected part, but somewhere along the way it got a new part number without getting the required structural fix. This is a real potential trap that just goes to show how critical your maintenance records are.
Okay, let's get into the nuts and bolts. Section 3 is all about the required actions and compliance times. This is the heart of it for every camo and maintenance team out there. For those Group 1 planes, the big thing is a repetitive general visual inspection of those galleys every 6 months. And here's the kicker, the really critical part. If you find anything wrong, any discrepancies, you have to fix it before the next flight. That, right there, can have a huge impact on your operations.
Now listen up, because the deadline for that first inspection isn't the same for everyone. It all depends on the specific part number of the galley you have installed. The newest part number added to the list gets a 12-month grace period, but others are tied to deadlines from older ADs. You absolutely have to check your specific part numbers against Table 1 in the directive to know your deadline.
And what about those tricky Group 2 airplanes? Well, the process is different. Because their history is a bit murky, operators have to reach out directly. You'll need to contact either the galley manufacturer, Airbus, or the design approval holder to get your hands on approved instructions, and then, of course, follow them to the letter.
Okay, that leads us right into Section 4. I mean, who wants to do these inspections forever, right? Let's talk about the long-term fix, the solution that improves safety and gets you out of that 6-month inspection loop.
So the question on everyone's mind is, obviously, is there a permanent fix? Is there a way to put these repetitive checks to bed for good? And thankfully, the answer is a big, resounding yes. If you modify an affected galley according to the approved instructions, that counts as a terminating action for that specific part.
So how do you get there? Well, it's all about a structural modification that's detailed in specific Airbus service bulletins. This fix restores the galley's original design strength, completely takes care of the unsafe condition, and, this is the best part for planners, it means no more 6-month inspections for that galley. It's done.
All right, let's zoom out a bit for Section 5. What's the bigger picture here for management, for planners, for the executives? What does this all mean for the business?
Think of this as your executive dashboard. The entire A320 fleet could be affected. Your biggest operational headache is that before next flight rule, which could ground an aircraft unexpectedly. This really forces a business decision. Do you want to deal with the ongoing costs and risks of these 6-month checks, or do you make the investment for the one-time, permanent modification?
All right, let's bring it all home with our final section, a quick summary of the key takeaways and a clear call to action on what you need to do next.
Look, the bottom line is simple. This AD isn't optional. You have to comply. And making it happen smoothly is going to take some serious teamwork. Coordination between camo, planning, maintenance, even the commercial teams to manage any downtime. And I can't stress this enough. For the complete official instructions, always go directly to the EASA AD text and the Airbus service bulletins. That's your source of truth.
Subscribe to AEROPODA YouTube channel.